Did you see that? The disgust in my cousin's voice made me turn around, but I didn't notice anything unusual. Just a sewer grate clogged with dead leaves and an empty sidewalk. There was a rat. A big one. My cousin Laura shivered. I hate those things. Are there a lot of them in the city? Don't think so, I shrugged. But then again, it's been raining a lot recently. Maybe the rising water made them come up from the sewers. I thought of slimy, flooded tunnels that would never see sunlight, and the blind, chittering creatures crawling through them, and shuddered. I didn't know that they could even get that big. My cousin Laura had a special gift for finding something ugly in any given situation. Here we were, on a beautiful fall morning, strolling through the park beneath golden leaves, and she was talking about giant rats. The truth was, I wasn't even sure what Laura was doing here. We hadn't exactly been close when we were younger. She'd always whined and rolled her eyes whenever the adults made her take care of me, and I hadn't heard from her in over 10 years when she'd sent a text asking to come visit me in the city. There was something ominous about how short and insistent the message was, but it felt wrong to turn her down. If she was trying to reconnect or make up for the past, I figured I should at least give her a chance. I should have known. Laura had shown up with a single packed-to-bursting suitcase, glancing over her shoulder like she expected someone to rob her at any minute. She was thinner than I'd remembered, and it looked like it had been a while since she'd slept. After an awkward hug, I invited her in for coffee. My cousin eagerly accepted, but we soon discovered that we had little to discuss above our steaming mugs. Less than half an hour had passed before I suggested we take a walk, mostly just to get away from the uncomfortable silence in my apartment. The change of environment seemed to do us both good. Laura walked more lightly, like a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. At least, until she saw the rat. It was all downhill from there. Laura kept glancing nervously at every sewer grate we passed, as though she expected a pack of rodents to come swarming out and attack us. Sometimes she'd kick her feet in the fallen leaves, like she'd just felt tiny paws running over her shoelaces. Her behavior was so odd that people were beginning to stare. Through gritted teeth, I suggested we take a rest and admire the foliage. Laura eagerly accepted, but I noticed she checked beneath the bench before she sat down beside me. I was about to ask her what was wrong when she stood with a shriek, clutching her ankle in agony. "Laura, are you okay? What happened?" "The rat. It bit me." There was no sign of injury on my cousin's leg, and there were certainly no mangy rabid rats running down the sidewalk. Laura's eyes darted back and forth, as though she could see thousands of ravenous, beady eyes watching her from beneath the trees. I found myself wondering about the real motive for her visit. The dark circles under Laura's eyes and her near-skeletal thinness were telltale signs of drug addiction. It was the only explanation I could think of that made sense. I wondered if the rest of the family knew. I wondered how long it would be before she hit me up for money. I chose my next words carefully. "I guess you should probably see a doctor, huh?" If I could get my cousin admitted to a hospital, I thought, maybe she'd get the help she needed. Not for her imaginary bite, but for her mind. "You can't see them, can you?" The look in Laura's eyes was a mixture of pity and contempt. "Don't worry, you will." At first, I had been afraid. Now I was angry. Babysitting my weird addict cousin through her bad trip was not what I had signed up for when I'd invited Laura to stay with me. I got to my feet, not sure whether I was going to yell at her, walk away, or threaten to call the police if she wouldn't get help. In the end, I did none of the above. To my surprise and embarrassment, Laura had started tearing at her clothing, still screaming about rats that no one else could see. "They're under my clothes!" she howled. "They're under my fucking skin!" Angry red gashes appeared on my cousin's body where she'd clawed at herself. I spotted 2 park policemen jogging toward us, muttering into their radios. But they didn't get to Laura in time. Suddenly, my cousin stopped flailing and collapsed among the withered leaves. The autopsy revealed that her heart had stopped beating, a response consistent with shock, but there were no signs of any drug in her system. I called my cousin's parents from a grimy police station phone booth. I kept my explanation vague, partly because I couldn't find the words to express the nightmare I'd experienced, and partly because I secretly hoped that their response would reveal if they'd known what was wrong with Laura. Their stunned horror sounded genuine. According to them, the only indication they'd had that anything was amiss in their daughter's life was that she'd missed her weekly call home on Sunday. They hadn't even known that she was planning to visit me. If the answers weren't in Laura's personal life or her autopsy results, maybe they were in the massive suitcase she'd dumped in my apartment. As numb and exhausted as I was, my heart pounded faster when I finally walked through my own front door. Laura's suitcase was right where she left it, casting a long, ominous shadow on my wall in the evening light. With trembling fingers, I tugged on the zipper. Laura had crammed it so full of stuff that it practically flew open, revealing a haphazard pile of junk. It looked like my cousin had just thrown in whatever came to hand. I reached out to dig through the mess, then froze. I could have sworn I'd seen movement in there. I waited for several agonizing seconds, but the pile in the suitcase stayed still. Not taking any chances, I grabbed my high school hockey stick and used it to poke through my cousin's stuff. If there was a nest of vermin in there, the last thing I wanted was to get bitten, just like Laura had been. Suddenly, the suitcase felt like a trap full of squirming, hairy creatures with wormy tails and razor-sharp teeth. Was whatever I might find in there really worth the risk? The shadows on the wall across from me shifted suddenly, like something had just skittered away. I realized that I needed to know what had happened to Laura. Tangled between two bras and an old raincoat, I found it, my cousin's diary. Now that I was actually holding it in my hand, however, I hesitated. Opening it felt like disrespect to the dead, an invasion of Laura's privacy, and yet, if I only looked at the most recent parts, that wouldn't be so bad, would it? Wouldn't my cousin have wanted someone to know what happened to her? Straining my eyes against the dying light, I began to read. For the most part, the purple notebook in my hand could have been the diary of anyone around my own age. Struggles with financial insecurity, self-doubt, feeling lost in life. Then, something caught my eye. October 24th. Rainy. It's almost Halloween. I want to do a horror movie marathon, but I'm too tired to focus. I slept so badly last night, something kept waking me up. It sounded almost like scratching in the walls. Guess I'll have to pick up some mousetraps after work. October 25th. More rain. Forgot all about the mousetraps last night. I got drinks with Ryan instead. He's cute, but I can never tell what he's thinking. He invited me to a Halloween party, but with that stupid little grin of his, who knows if it's a date or not? I give up. I'm sure about the noise now. There's definitely something moving in the walls. Guess I'll have to warn Ryan about it when he stays over. October 26th. Cold but sunny. It's past midnight. I'm sitting in my room with the lights on and towels stuffed under the door. I am so freaked out right now. Went to the kitchen for a glass of water and saw a giant rat creeping across the counter. The thing was bigger than a chihuahua. Then when I turned around, there were 2 more pairs of rat eyes watching me from the bathroom. Hell, no. I'm staying in here until morning. Then I'm calling pest control. October 27th. Well, that was a scam. The so-called exterminator says there's no evidence of rats anywhere in the apartment. He looked at me like I was crazy when I said that I could hear them crawling around inside the walls. Whatever. I'll just have to figure something else out. Who knows? Maybe the whole town has a rat problem. There were a few more of them around the dumpster at work. Gross. October 28th. It was in my freaking bed. I wasn't even sure why I woke up until I felt its cold nose on my belly and its tiny teeth. And it wasn't alone. They were on my shelves, inside my slippers when I ran out of the room. One jumped on my back from the sofa. I still have the scratch marks, but the doctor said he couldn't see them. I guess they weren't as deep as they felt. I can't spend another night in that apartment. I don't even know what I've got in this suitcase. They clawed and bit at me the whole time I was packing. like they wanted to keep me there for a goddamn midnight snack. I told my landlord Fat Chance that she'll do anything about it. Claire from work is letting me crash on her couch while this whole thing gets sorted out. What a mess. I turned the page. Laura had stopped using dates, and her entries were getting more haphazard. Her writing, so precise at first, had become slanted chicken scratch. I can't even remember the last time I got a full night's sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I can feel them, pawing at my skin, nibbling at my toes. Claire kicked me out, says that I keep screaming in the middle of the night. I tried my luck at a hotel, but the rats are there too. I can hear them in the walls. Must have nodded off on a bench in the park, 'cause I had a dream. In it, I was staying with my younger cousin, downtown in some big city. We were talking, laughing, and having a good time, until I started to feel sick. I ran to the bathroom and felt something big, slimy, and hairy sliding out my throat. I coughed up a rat into the sink. When I lifted up my shirt and looked in the mirror, there were more of them squirming under the skin of my belly. The words on the next page were soiled by something, maybe rainwater or tears. Got fired from work. After what happened with Claire, my ex-coworkers aren't answering my calls. Don't know anyone else here. Been spending the nights where I can. Always big open spaces so that I can see them coming. I know that no one else can see the rats, but does that even matter when I can feel their teeth gnawing on me? Can't tell my parents. They'll have me committed. Gotta find someplace else to go. Hadn't thought about my cousin for years till I had that dream. What was it last night? 2 nights ago? I've lost track. I'm gonna use the Wi-Fi in the library to write to her. I hope she gets back to me. She's all I've got. The last entry was just 2 days ago. My cousin must have spent Halloween night crammed into an overnight bus with a crowd of strangers, trying desperately to reach me. Now I understood why she'd looked so pale and haunted. But I didn't understand how it all had started. As far as I could tell from Laura's diary, she'd been fine one day, and the next, she was surrounded by monstrous rats that only she could see. Fear of them had taken her career, her relationships, and finally her life. No one else could see what was hunting Laura, but that didn't make the pain any less real for her. My hands clenched into fists. It didn't make sense. It wasn't fair. Things like that weren't supposed to just happen to people for no reason. There had to be some cause, some logic behind it. I was still wondering what that might have been when something scurried across my foot.